Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today's video is another update on how to edit in the style of FURSTY. This is kind of more of the really nice, moody, dark kind of images. We did a video of this a few weeks back and a lot of people were like, this isn't quite in his style. That's because we edited a slightly different type of photo, and a lot of people wanted to see how to edit his kind of animal photos, like his picture of his eagles or hummingbirds, that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be editing a photo of a bird in the style of FURSTY. So this is kind of an update video. We've got lots more moody videos as well around on the channel if you want to go ahead and check those out as well. Before I dive into the video, I do want to point out two things before we go any further. First off, we've currently got a huge giveaway running. Unfortunately, it's only for people in the US or the UK or Europe because of like worldwide shipping. We can't really get that sorted yet. But so if you're in the US or you're in Canada, Australia, I think we can do, and in like Europe, then there's a huge $10,000 giveaway. You get access to our online course, which teaches you exactly how to go ahead and use Lightroom as beginner to pro. So if you've never opened Lightroom before and you really want to kind of get into editing your photographs or that kind of stuff, and become like one of your favorite influencers, and because you want to edit really good photos on Lightroom, you've never really kind of know how to use the platform properly, then the course teaches you everything you need to know. It takes you through step by step, taking you from a complete bare bones beginner up to a professional Instagram influencer, editor, that kind of style. You can be really professional. Photos can come out of this course once you've learned all the stuff. So you get that for free in there. You also get access to all of our presets on the website, all of our Photoshop actions on the website. You also get access to one-on-one mentoring for myself and my brother. You also get access to, I think, a Facebook group, loads of different stuff as well. And as well as that, in the giveaway, with all of that contained, we are also giving away a $1,000 voucher for Amazon, and as well a DJI, I think, inspired too as well. The link will be down below in the description, so do go ahead, check it out. All you have to do to enter is literally just type in your email, click submit, and then we'll contact the person who won. We'll just send them an email, so make sure it's an email you use either for like your YouTube, your Instagram, or your Facebook, or something like that, that we can actually get in contact with you. Don't use like a spam email, because if we don't get a reply, then we'll email the next person. So make sure you use an email you use for like your social medias or whatever. So make sure if you're in the US or in Europe, somewhere around there, go ahead, check out the entry now, put in your email and submit. I'm sorry guys, we can't do this worldwide. We will do another giveaway, I think, in the future where we can do this worldwide, but unfortunately we can't do that at the moment. Second thing is, if you guys are interested in the course, I mentioned it just a minute ago, how to edit in Lightroom. You use the piece of software, it takes you from bare bones basic up to professional. It's a huge discount at the moment. Go ahead and check that out as well. The link will be down below in the description. Really, really useful course. You get access to a Facebook group. You also get access to like live calls from us. We'll give you one-on-one mentoring. We'll kind of talk to you, give you feedback on your photos, access to other people who are in the Facebook group, bouncing ideas with each other, giving you feedback, that kind of stuff. Teaches you everything you need to know from bare bones basics up to professional. You also get access to some of our presets and some free raw images that you can go ahead and hone your skills on and practice with. So do go ahead and check out that course as well. Huge amount of effort was put into making that, so I'm really sure a lot of you guys are going to love that. Without any further ado guys, let's just jump straight into today's video. Okay, so this is FURSTY's account here. You guys probably know this already, but he's got a huge following, 1.2 million followers. So the kind of photos he posts, you guys probably know this already, but just a quick summary, these really dark and moody photos. So lots of his photos contain this really nice blue theme, lots of fade in there, huge amounts of contrast, really crushes those highlights, hasn't really got any bright highlights, really darkens down those blacks, this kind of stuff here, really nice fade across the whole image, really soft looking images. Quite a good depth of field he takes with his photos, so obviously if you're trying to take photos in his style, then try and get a good depth of field. Also lots of atmospheric effects like mist and fog and stuff, but obviously that depends on where and when you take your photo. But yeah, a lot of this blue, green, misty, dark kind of photos. So that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be trying to edit photos like that. We're going to be editing a photo in the style of this particular photo here, this really nice bald eagle, I think it is. Absolutely stunning photo. Love this one. As you see, it's got like nearly 100,000 likes on it. And here is my interpretation of it. Let me just put that in full screen so you guys can see it. So this is the final color grade that we're going to be aiming towards. So you can see that is very similar. Obviously I can't get it exactly because it's not exactly the same photo, but it's a very similar color grade. We get these nice blues, we get this nice highlights here on the bird, really soft desaturated tones, and a little bit of this green in the image as well that you can see in the background in the leaves here. So that's what we're going to be doing today guys. This is the after image, and this is the before image. So you can see before and after, before and after. Huge amount of color grading on this. So this is probably going to be quite a long video. We're going to go into depth quite a bit, just kind of teaching you guys exactly how to do this. So before and after. If you do want to grab the presets for this, I will have our dark and moody preset pack down below. It's got all of this kind of stuff in it, so if you just want to click one button and get this edit, then go ahead and check that out as well. The link will be down below in the description. But anyway, let's just jump straight into editing this photo. So first off, let's just click reset. Okay, so this is the photo that we start off raw out the camera. Now the first thing that I like to do is just put this into like a social media format, which is 4:5 aspect ratio. So just come up here, click 4:5, drag that over the image nicely there. I like to keep the bird kind of foreground, like center rather, because obviously that's the main focus point of the image. Let's bring that back again. Okay, so now we've cropped it to 4:5. What we want to do is we want to really start diving into the edit. So that's the preset there, so click that, that'll apply it to it. But first thing we want to do is we want to focus on the basic panel. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone through and I've edited this photo beforehand, so we will be using kind of the previous settings that we did beforehand, but I will try and explain exactly why I'm making these certain adjustments. But if you want to know exactly how to use Lightroom, go ahead and check out the course. So the first thing we want to do is we really want to kind of get rid of these really bright highlights, brighten up, darken down the whole image. It's kind of a little bit too overexposed at the moment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to grab the exposure and we're going to bring that down to about -2.5. Now all that's doing is just darkening down the image. I just know that number works because I used it for the last when I edited this photo, but you essentially want to just bring down the darkness of the image, or the lightness of the image. We're going to come to the contrast, come back there in a second. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the highlights as well. We're just going to bring those all the way down to -100 because we really don't want those bright white highlights in the background, because if you look at Dylan FURSTY's photos, he never has really bright white highlights. So that is achieved by completely removing it from the image, like I've just done here. Next up with the shadows, we are going to bring those back up just to bring in a lot of detail back into the shadows here. So around +75, +80 would be quite a nice amount. So you can see already got a little bit more detail back in the shadows. Whites as well, we're going to bring those all the way down to -100. Again, that is just to get rid of those really harsh whites. We do not want those in the image. Okay, and then finally we're going to bring the blacks up to about +80, 85 as well. That just really just brings back in that detail into the shadow. So I know you're looking at this at the moment and you think this is really quite a dark looking image. Now of course it is. We can see before and after, you can see the difference. Like we've really got rid of these really bright highlights and we just crushed everything down and made it really quite dark. But his Instagram theme is very dark and moody. We will be using like ellipse tools and stuff later on, the brush tools, to bring back some highlights in certain areas, but that's kind of the basic principle. If we want to bring down those highlights and kind of darken down the whole image, but make sure we've got some detail still in the shadows. Okay, so next up we're going to come down to the presence section of the basics panel and we're going to add in a tiny bit of clarity, probably about +8, +9, not much, just to get the little bit of detail in those highlights and dark tones as well, because it just kind of helps bring some contrast into the image. Next up, come down to the vibrancy and we're going to drop that down to about -30. Now that is because if you look at his photos, they're really desaturated and we don't want super bright colours, otherwise it just kind of goes against his whole theme. Having said that, we are going to bring back in a little bit of saturation, just vibrancy down, saturation up a little bit, so bring the saturation up to about +10. Coming back to the contrast panel, we do want to add in a little bit of contrast as well. So we are going to add in about +15, just to really add in a little bit of contrast, but we didn't want to do that before we did these highlight shadows, whites and blacks, because obviously we can really control the contrast with those sliders as well. Okay, so that's the basic panel done, guys. I know I've kind of whistle-stop tour through that, but the general principle was bring down the highlights, bring down the whites, really crush those highlights, bring in some detail back into the shadows by pumping those up full to the right, and as well with the blacks, just kind of brings in the detail. Bring down the exposure as well, just kind of darkens down the image. We've got a lot of detail still in there, but just darken the whole down a bit. Okay, so if you want to know how to do the tone curve, that really does help kind of finish the whole image off. We're going to be coming to that later on at the end of the video, so stick around to the end of the video, guys, because that will kind of make or break the image. So that will be right at the end, because I don't want to do that before I do the rest of it. So stick around to the end to make sure you learn how to use the tone curve properly. Next up, we're going to skip out the HSL sliders as well, so we'll be coming back to that in a minute. We're just going to come down to the split toning. Now, the split toning is really quite important, especially when editing in Dylan FURSTY style, because what you can do is you can really achieve this nice blue-green look simply by applying a certain colour to your highlights and to your shadows. So here we have control over the highlights and the shadows and the saturation of each one. So by looking at his images here, all of his images have this really nice bluey green shadow to it. Like everywhere, every dark part of the image has this dark kind of blue, or in this case a dark green. So that is how his whole theme is uniform. This is exactly what you want to do to make his, if you're going to be copying his theme or mimicking a Moody style, this can really make the theme uniform. That is simply just by applying a certain colour to the shadows and to the highlights. So let's just bring this back to our reference image. which is here. So as I said, we want a nice blue to the shadows, so we hold down Option or Alt and drag our slider. It shows us exactly the colour that we'll be applying to our shadows. So 227 I think is a really nice kind of blue. We don't want to go too far to the right because it's a bit more purple, and to the left it's a bit too green for this particular image because we're basing it off this eagle here with the nice blue background. Now we're going to add in some saturation there as well. So we're going to go quite mad on that. We're just going to add in a saturation of 35. Now I know at the moment you're thinking that just looks really horrible and really blue, but of course this is, stick with me guys, because this will, the image will build up as we go through. At the moment it looks a bit gross and a bit disgusting, but we need that blue in the shadows to really make this whole image work well. Very similar to the highlights guys, we do want a blue in there, but we're going to kind of go towards the kind of tealy aqua ice blues as opposed to the dark blue that we went for here. So around 200, 210 usually is a good shout for that. Okay, and now with this, the saturation, we're just going to put a saturation of 10. We don't want to be overblowing the whole image with blue because then we're just going to have an entire blue image. So we don't want to be doing that. Just those numbers work quite well, as in a little bit of blue to the shadows and the highlights. You can see if I turn that off and on, it really starts bringing in the blues to the shadows, and especially the blues to the highlights as well. Okay, now we've done that, I think what we're going to do is we are also going to skip everything out and go down to the camera calibration. Now the camera calibration is something that everyone says don't use, or some people say do use. Like, it's up to personal preference, but for me, you've got this there, you might as well use it and really utilize how powerful the camera calibration can be. So we are going to be using the camera calibration regardless of what everyone else says. Obviously this will depend on your image guys, because it depends on your camera profiles and the exact image you're using and stuff. So this isn't like a spoken gospel word, what I'm about to, these numbers I'm putting in, but the general gist is, for the camera calibration, is have a play around, because there's no real way of knowing exactly what it's going to do to your image, because it changes for literally every image you do and every camera you use, especially when you download a raw file online somewhere you don't really know exactly kind of what they've been using and the profiles and stuff and all that stuff. So essentially what I like to do is, first of all, I like to come to the green primary and slide it around. Usually if you bring it up to the right, you can see we get immediately that really nice moody look. It brings up these greens more to this bluey green, and makes everything else a little bit kind of bluer. If I bring it to the left, you kind of get this more autumnal orangey green, so we don't want that. So we're going to bring that green primary up a bit. So we only want to bring that to about 10. We don't want to overdo it too much. And we are going to bring the saturation of this down a little bit, because, you know, if we bring it up too much, everything just starts getting a little bit out of hand. So we can drop that to about -45, really just desaturate the whole image as well. Next up, we're going to have a play around with the blue primary. So again, if you bring it to the left, usually you find you get a bit more of an orange and teal effect. Bring it to the right, and you get these really nice kind of bluey, tealy greens, I guess. So we're going to be bringing it to the right as well, because that kind of really helps achieve this look here in the leaves, this kind of green look, by bringing it up to the right. So again, about 20, I think. And we're going to bring down the saturation of that as well to about -30, just dropping all the saturation of these down a little bit. Next up, red primary, just have a little bit of play around again. Bring it to the right, makes this kind of more browny green, and to the left gets that nice bluey green, which is exactly what we're going to be going for, guys. So let's just drop that down to about -15. Now, the reason why I'm not dropping it all the way down to -100 and stuff, because we are going to come back to the HSL slider and kind of target those individual colours specifically, so we kind of want to be doing a little bit down here. We can always come back later on and adjust those numbers later. Next up, let's come back to the HSL sliders. Okay, so with the hues, we're really not going to do very much apart from on the greens, because the greens is kind of where this whole image is at the moment. We've kind of color graded everything, so it's kind of blues and greens. We've got rid of pretty much everything else. So the greens, we're going to whack those up to the right, literally just to bring up these blues, bring some blues into the greens, get this really nice color here in the leaves. That can be achieved by bringing it up. We're not going to bring it up to 100, let's just go for about 75. Okay, now that's all I'm going to do on the hues, because as you can see, we literally have nothing else left in the image, because we've gone ahead and done the whole camera calibration, split turning and all that fun stuff. So next up, we are going to come down to the saturation. Now the saturation will affect it slightly, because there is still some of these yellows, oranges and stuff in the image, but they're very subtle and you can't really see them. It's kind of a more subconscious thing when you look at the image. So we will be dropping lots of saturations down just to kind of desaturate the whole image. So with the oranges, let's just drop that down to about -80. See, as I said, there's really not much in the image there. Again, with the yellows, let's just drop that down as well. Greens, we are going to drop that down a little bit as well, because if we brighten up, we get the green. And as I said, we want to be going for this kind of bluey, dark kind of image. So that can be achieved by dropping the saturation off, as you can see. Drop that down. Obviously, if I drop it down to -100, we just essentially get a flat image, which we don't want. We do want some of the greens in the background, so we're going to bring that only down to about -47, I think, maybe 50. That looks alright, I think. Aquas, yeah, drop those down. Blues as well, there are blues you see here in the sky and stuff, but that's the wrong kind of blue, so I want to be dropping those down as well. Let's just go for -60 as well. And now with the purples and magentas, I just like whacking these ones down to -100, especially for Dylan FURSTY style, because if you've got purples in there that's kind of taken away from the greens and the blues, it bugs me. My eyes just kind of get stressed out because I know there's something wrong with the image, but I can't quite tell what. And it's usually the purples or magentas, or in some cases, depends the image of the color grade you're doing. So that's what we're going to be doing with the saturation. Next up is the luminance. Now with the reds, you can see here we've got a little bit of brightness on the trees. Now what we want to do is, if you look at his images, he's got quite a bit of clarity, quite a bit of contrast on these trees here, especially in certain areas like this hummingbird here or this kingfisher, because if you've darkened down the whole image, you really want to make sure there are certain parts of the image that really stand out and are really quite bright. That effect can be achieved quite well with the luminance panel, so we're just going to whack that up. Why not? Let's bring it up to about +58. Again, with the oranges and the yellows, that should be in the trees as well, not too much on the oranges, but definitely in the yellows, in the leaves in the background, so I like bringing it up to 100 as well. Just add a little bit more interest to the image. You could bring up, depending on personal preference, but because we're going for a dark and moody kind of photo, it really helps just to kind of drop those down a bit as well. So let's just bring this down to about -40. Aquas are going to be left at 0, but we're going to add in some luminance to the blues just so we can brighten up the head of the feathers here and a little bit in the background, just to add in again a little more contrast. So now that should be it, guys. I don't think we're going to do anything else to the HSL sliders. Let's just turn it off and on so you can see how targeted and how differently we can edit the image by using the HSL sliders. So let's just do a quick before and after, so a before and after, so you can see how much editing we've managed to achieve on this image. Like, usually people would look at this image straight out of the camera and really think there's nothing I can do to this image, I can't salvage it, I can't take anything out of this, but as you can see already, we've got something really quite cool out of it. So next up, I think we've just got the tone curve to do. Yep, so tone curve, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our usual 3-point curve, so put one here, one in the middle and one on our highlights. Now usually we add in contrast and stuff, but for this image, okay, so quick interlude, guys. If you are in the US or you are in Europe and you do want to enter this $10,000 giveaway, again, go ahead, drop your email down below in the submission box, just click enter and you'll be submitted. We will email you if you've won. And of course, if you want to go ahead and check out the course that really teaches you exactly why I'm doing these certain adjustments here, because I can't teach you everything in one video, go ahead, grab the course, huge discount at the moment. It will teach you exactly why I'm doing these certain adjustments, to the point that you don't even need to watch my videos after you've taken this course. So go ahead and grab that course, guys. Okay, so back to the tone curve. What we're going to do is we're going to bring in the middle point here, we're going to drag it up. This just kind of adds in a lot of contrast to the image. As you can see, makes it look a bit funky if we go too far, so not going to do too much, just bring it up a touch. Now what we're going to do is we are going to drop down the shadows a little bit, again, not too much, and we're going to grab the blacks down here, or the shadows, and just bring them up. Now what that does is adds in a bit of fade into the image. So I'm just going to kind of tweak around with these a little bit. I am going to bring in a little bit more contrast. These shadows I'm going to bring across a little bit. Okay, so if I turn that off and turn that on, you can see immediately that softens the whole image and it adds in the fade to the image. So you can see here in all of his photos, especially our reference photo here, there's a lot of fade in the background. So that's what we've just done. You can see that we're now starting to get a very similar look to Dylan FURSTY. I've just remembered what we are going to do is add in a little bit of sharpening to the image, and just by bringing that up a little bit, bring the radius to 3, that just sharpens the bird's eyes a little bit, and just a touch of noise reduction. That just simply smooths out the whole image. Not too much though, because it will just lose a little bit of detail to the image. So okay, there we go. That is the basic color grade done. I think we've done everything. Yep. Okay, so that's basically the whole color grade done. What is sometimes nice to do for Dylan FURSTYs is add in a bit of a vignette. So we're going to do that as well by dropping that down to quite far, to be fair, probably about -25, -26. And what that does is really darkens the corners of the images, brings your viewer's attention and your focus right to the center, which of course is the bird right at the center of the image. Okay, what we are going to do though is, because we've darkened down the whole image, and of course the bird is the center of attention and now it's a little bit too dark, we're going to do some targeted editing using some of our advanced editing techniques, and we're going to put an ellipse tool and brighten up the bird in the foreground. So drag an ellipse like this, just drag it over the bird. We're just going to reset all of these numbers, invert our mask so it's just affecting inside the ring here. Let's just bring up the exposure, I reckon, to about 0.45. Not too much, because we are going to do some different editing in a minute. It's about 0.45, and we're going to bring up our highlights as well, just whack that up to about plus 80, plus 90. What that does is really just bring back those highlights on the bird's feathers, and especially here on its body as well. So you like bringing a lot of highlights back into the image as well, just to kind of draw your attention towards the bird. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get our brush tool. Let's just reset all of our parameters here again, and we're going to zoom into the bird. And we're essentially going to do some targeted editing on the bird's face. And what this is going to do for us is really just hone in to all the feathers around here and just brighten them up, and especially around the eye, just to really draw your attention towards them. Exposure to about 0.1, 0.9, something like 0.87, let's go for it. And then we want to bring up the highlights to about 50, shadows and the whites, just bring them, all three of those up. Essentially that's just brightening the image up in the region that we're going to be selecting. We are also going to bring the clarity up to about plus 20 as well, maybe not that far. Now all that does is the whitest of the whites will make whiter, and the darkest of the darks will make darker. I say it's in all my videos, guys, and what it does essentially just adds in a lot more contrast. So we are just going to be now brushing over the bird's feathers, so we can either just do it like this and just kind of take guesswork and see where it's brushing, but if you don't want to do that, you can just click Show Selected Mask Overlay and it will show a little red blob of where you're brushing, but personal preference, I turn that off usually. And we're just going to brush over the regions of the bird, really that we kind of want to brighten up. So these white bits on the beak, especially these white feathers around the eyes, just brighten these up just to draw the viewer's attention towards it. We don't want to be going too much over the black parts of the bird, because then it'll look a little bit unreasonable that the bird is so bright but the background's so dark. So mainly want to focus on the bright parts of the bird, like the feathers. And we're going to brush a little bit around the eye as well, just to brighten that up, because really want to bring the viewer's attention, make it really quite crisp and sharp at this point. So let's just brush over all these white regions here as well. Okay, let's just click Fit, zoom out, select Done, and see the difference that looks. Okay, immediately, guys, you can see how amazing the difference is between using the brush tool and not using the brush tool. So that is really quite important if you want to get a really good look to this image. So again, before and after, guys, I'm really impressed with how this is looking so far, but we are not finished. So what we are going to do now is we're just going to come back onto the brush tool, create a new brush. Let's just reset these settings a little bit, and we're going to just brush over the bird here, just a little bit more exposure on these highlights, just really kind of just brightening up, very subtle, but just making sure the bird is brighter than the background, just make it stand out a little bit more. So these front feathers, I will actually bring up the highlights as well, because obviously there are more highlights on the bird that we want brightening up. So again, these feathers down here, just really just have a play around, guys. Just make sure you adjust the right parts of the bird just to brighten it up. Okay, so that's kind of mostly the bird done. What I do want to do is see if I can just brighten up this ring here around the bird's eyes. So just click New. I'm just going to whack the exposure up pretty high, bring my brush size down really small, and just brush in this ring here, this ring of white. That'll just hopefully really brighten it up, make it look nice and crisp, and make it stand out. Okay, so let's just click Fit, zoom back out. Okay, you can see that the eye is now really quite piercing, which I really quite like in these photos. Finally, what we're going to do is we are just going to brighten up the trees and the branches around the bird, just to kind of add in this effect here that he has on the trees and the branches of the high clarity and the brightness there. So, new brush again, just maybe bring it up, just highlights, shadows, and the blacks. We can always go back and adjust those in a minute. Let's zoom in, increase our brush size, and just brush around where the bird is standing, especially on these really highlight patches, just to brighten up these sections and draw the viewer's attention to it. Also creates a really nice effect. You'll see when I zoom out what this is going to do to the image. It's going to make it look really quite nice. So again, these bits up here, this branch at the back here. I might bring the exposure down a little bit. I think it's a little bit too bright, but we'll do that when we zoom out just to see what it looks like. Okay, so now let's zoom out and click Fit. Okay, so there we go, that's brightened up the tree, the branches around there. As I predicted, it is a little bit too bright, so let's just select our brush again, and let's just drop that exposure down a little bit to about 0.5, 0.6. Okay, there we go, guys, that is pretty much done. What I'm going to do is just really show you what the effect is of removing these brushes now. So if I click Delete on the face, you see how much that darkens down the face there. this is the bird, the feathers, delete that, really darkens down the feathers, and then finally the tree branches, delete that, bring back the brightness, change your mind, let's bring that to about 0.8. Okay, there we go guys, that is pretty much the video done. One final thing we're going to do is grab the graduated filter, drop that exposure down to about -1.6, drop down everything else to 0, and just darken off the bottom corners and the top corners of the image. I know we did this with the vignetting tool as well, but it's always nice just to do some targeted vignetting with the graduated filter. Okay, let's click done, fit, put that in full screen so you guys can see that. Now there we go guys, that is the final color grade of the image. I really like how that turned out. I really hope you guys preferred this one to the previous video, and you guys and I really hope you guys now know how to edit Dylan FURSTY's kind of photos, so before and after, before and after. So if you do want to grab the preset pack for this guys, it's our Dark and Moody preset pack. This exact preset will be in the pack, so go ahead and check that out. The link will be down below in the description. Of course, if you are in the US and you are in the UK or Europe or whatever, and you want to be part of the giveaway, go ahead, enter in your email on the link below. And of course, if you're anywhere in the world and you want to get access to our course, huge amount of discount at the moment, go ahead and check that out as well. So thanks for watching guys, I really hope you enjoyed this edit. We'll see you guys in the next one.